Good morning, one and all present here. This is Amit Kumar Singh, and welcome to yet another session on derivatives. Today, we'll discuss about future contract. Forward contract we have discussed in the last class. We have tried to understood what derivatives are all about, and by understanding derivatives, primarily we were trying to understand forward contract because primarily derivative was known in the form of forward contract only. So we don't know the time when people started using derivatives as a medium for their risk management strategy. So initially, derivative was looked as a tool through which risk can be minimized. So that form of logic with which derivative came in picture to minimize the risk on the trading exposure, that was basically called as hedging. So whenever we use the word called hedging, hedging basically means working on a risk management strategy. So initially, a derivative was looked as a risk management strategy only, and the players, those who involved in hedging, so the players can be long hedger or they can be short hedgers. Long hedgers means those who take long position on derivative contract, and the players can be short hedgers. Short hedgers means those who take short positions on derivative contract. So basically, we don't use the word called a buyer or seller in the case of. Instead of using the word called buyer or seller, we use the word called long position holder and short position holder. So long position holder is the person who commits to take a long position or who want to buy the underlying asset in the future. So the person who is interested to buy the underlying asset in the future is called long position holder, while the person who is interested to sell the underlying asset in the future is called a short position holder. So whenever the derivative contract starts, both long and short position holder they come together and they can mutually decide the terms of the contract on which they will follow the transaction in the future. That is the overall logic of the derivative. So here, if the intention of long and short position holder is to minimize the risk over the price of the underlying asset, then they are called as long hedgers or short hedgers. So initially, when derivative came in picture, derivative was only used for commodity market. So that form of derivative, what we see, that is called as commodity derivative, because the underlying assets were commodity, were the commodity markets instruments. So basically, those players, when they are using derivative, so they are using derivative for the commodity derivative market. So gradually, as the time progressed and more exposures of derivatives start happening in the society, so gradually the risk also started increasing. Risk, what risk I'm talking about? I'm talking credit risk or default risk. That one person run away from the contract. That situation also gradually started increasing. You understand it? Because when you talk about forward contract contains a problem of default risk. Forward contract are illiquid instruments. So if any individual who commit to take position in the forward contract, there can be possibility that the person may run away from the contract. He or she does not follow in the future. The whatever he or she has committed, he or she will not follow. So that problem of forward contract was gradually replaced with the introduction of forward contract on exchange, and that was called as future contract. So around 1848, the group of farmers and traders, they came together and in Chicago. So group of farmers and traders, they came together and they led the foundation of first exchange that was called the CBOT, Chicago Board of Trade. So around 1848, the group of farmers and traders, they came together and they have established an exchange. They have established a commodity derivative exchange. And whenever you talk about exchange, exchange follows the concept of novation. So whenever you talk about exchange, exchange follow the concept of novation. Novation basically means novation basically means that the exchange become the buyer for everyone who want to sell the underlying assets, and exchange become the seller for everyone who want to buy the underlying assets. Okay, so this concept where buyer did not need to worry who is the seller and seller did not need to worry who is the buyer. So for every buyer, exchange is like a seller, and for every seller, exchange is the like a buyer. So this concept is called as novation. Okay, and the problem with the forward contract was the forward contract contains the problem of default risk, where there was a scenario or there was a possibility that one person may run away from the contract. So in order to remove that risk of default risk, what exchange did? Exchange started using the same concept of forward contract what was there in OTC market. The same logic was started applying over the exchange, and then this introduction of forward contract over exchange, this introduction of forward contract on exchange. Whenever we talk about forward contract on exchange, it is called as future contract. It is called as future contract. So whenever we talk about future contract, so whenever we talk about future contract, so future contract is nothing but uh, it is the application of forward contract which is implied over the exchange. So once it is implied over the exchange, now exchange guarantees the counterparty risk. Exchange guarantees the default risk. So the buyer did not need to worry who is the seller, and the seller need not need to worry who is the buyer. Exchange take that risk. Okay, so but when you talk about future contract are the standardized contract. So when you talk about standardized contract, for future contract are the contracts where the terms of the contract, where the value of the contract, everything, the expiration date, everything is decided by the exchange, and both the long and short position holder has to follow the terms what is implied by the exchange. So in the future contract is not a customized contract. They are the terms you cannot decide. So you can only trade on the lot sizes or the contract sizes what is prescribed by the exchange for that underlying asset. It can be you're looking for an asset, maybe that asset is not at all trading. So you need to do cross hedging. You need to figure a counter assets which can more or less have the similar beta of the assets on which you want to hedge your risk. So these problems can happen. Maybe I'm a jute manufacturer. Maybe I'm a farmer in West Bengal who is doing jute farming, and I want to hedge my risk on my jute as my underlying asset, because gradually once my jute become ready, I want to sell that in the market. But maybe if I went to the exchange, jute is not at all trading. So I need to find out an asset which have the similar what you say pricing pattern like a jute, or which is similar to the jute in other niches also, biological niches also. So maybe then I need to hedge my risk over another asset, that is the cotton. So such things can happen in the case of future contract, because only limited number of underlying assets can be traded over the exchange. Not every assets can be traded over the exchange. Okay, like if I give you an example of commodity derivatives like commodity futures and options, which are trading over NCDX or MCX. So we have 1 month contract, we have 2 month contract, we have 3 month contract. We don't have 4 month contract. If you want to trade on 4 month contract, first you have to take 3 month contract, and then once and gradually in the future, once your 3 month contract get expired, take another contract. Okay, so if I just gave you an example. So if you are a trader, maybe you are a cotton, you are the cotton farmer. You do farming of cotton, and the cotton is trading over the exchange. But even then, you want to minimize your exposure on maybe 4 month contract. But 4 month contract does not trades on MCDX or MCX. If you go to MCDX or you go to MCX and you ask for a 4 month contract, they say the 4 month contract is not there. So only we have 1 month contract, we have 2 month contract, we have 3 month contract. You're getting similarly in the financial derivatives also, like which is popular on BSC and NSE. We have 1 month contract, we have 2 month contract, we have 3 month contract. And when you talk about financial futures and options, so they expires every Thursday. If they expires on the not every Thursday, it expires on the last Thursday of every month. Okay, so we have 1 month contract, we have 2 month contract, we have 3 month contract, and they expires on the last Thursday of every month. Okay, so when you talk about future contract, in the case of future contract, the terms of the contract is being decided, and both the buyer or the long position holder or seller or short position holder, they need to get into the contract, understanding the terms of the contract, and then only they can trade over the contract. So if I look into future contract are liquid instrument. They're centralized instrument. Here the buyer need to worry who is the seller. The seller need not need to worry who is the buyer. But you may not get that customized form of agreement what usually you may can do in the case of forward contract. Forward contract is a OTC based instrument. When you talk about forward contract, because it is a OTC based instrument, so basically in India, a forward contract is not at all allowed by the normal individuals. If you are bank or if you are corporate, till certain extent, for a bank and banks, no problem. For corporate, till certain extent, they can use uh, uh, forward contract till a certain extent. Okay, for because again it depends upon the policies of government to government. Country like US, you can trade more freely on currencies, but a country like India, you cannot trade much freely on currencies. Even then, you are a bank. So that restriction or relaxation varies from country to country. So looking into the history of future contract, so around 1848, the first exchange came in picture, that was CBOT, Chicago Board of Trade, where the group of farmers and traders, they came together and they talked about a contract. They talked about the contract on which they can follow together, so that they can erase the possibility of default risk, and that led the foundation of future contract. So gradually, as the time progressed, so around 1865, gradually as the time progressed, so around 1865, a new body was formulated, and that was Chicago Butter and Egg Board. That was Chicago Butter and Egg Board. So a new body was formulated, that was Chicago Butter and Egg Board, and later on its name got changed to CME. CME stand for Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Okay, so Chicago Butter and Egg Board, it tried to work on an organized future trading. So as what was initiated in by CBOT, Chicago Board of Trade, then around 1865, when Chicago Butter and Egg Board came in picture, so they started working on a organized future trading. Organized they started working on a organized future trading. They started working on a organized future trading, and gradually as the time progressed, more or less when we see a 20th century, the exchange were dominated by CBOT or CME, Chicago Board of Trade, or Chicago Mercantile Exchange. As the gradually the time progressed, so the other exchanges also got popular in other part of India. The other exchanges also got popular in other part of India, like not India means other part of world, like Life. Life is the exchange in London. Life stand for London Inter. Life stand for London London International Financial Future Exchange. That was Life. Then DTB. So it got famous in Germany. So DTB is a Germany based exchange. Then in India we had Bombay Cotton Trade Association, which gradually was doing cotton exchange. So in India we had Bombay Cotton Trade Association. We had NBOT, National Board of Trade, that was there in India. That was there in India's Indore. where the soybean trading used to happen. So like LIFE was London International Financial Institute, BTB Germany, Bombay Cotton Trade Association, NBOT National Board of Trade India, then SGX Singapore. So as the time progressed, more and more exchange came in picture, and the intention of this exchange is to avoid the possibility of counterparty risk, and to formulate the working of a global market where the price risk of different individuals can be minimized. So the exchanges can be were like LIFE or DTB or SGX, or they can be TIFE, so Tokyo International Financial Future Exchange. So that was in Japan. Then the other exchanges like MATIF in France. So these exchanges, they gradually got more popularity with the time than Eurex, European exchange. So these exchange, they were getting more popular around the world, and as the society was developing, and as more and more trading was happening, and so gradually you can see the influence of merchant banking in and around the different banking environment, and also in trading environment also. So so more or less, when we see these instruments which were getting popular all around the world in different exchanges, primarily the underlying assets were commodity only. So primarily the underlying asset was commodity only, and the instrument which were trading were basically commodity derivative instruments only. But around 1972, but after 1970, around 1972, so when Bretton Woods Agreement, when Bretton Woods Agreement. So you'll study about Bretton Woods Agreement in ISM, where in around 1972, when Bretton Woods Agreement got abolished. So then the exchange rate around the world become very volatile. Currency market become very volatile, because once the Second World War got ended, then a new Hampshire, Bretton Woods. It's a place in USA where around 44 countries, allied countries, they all came together, and they have uh, introduced they have introduced dollar as the new reserve currency instead of gold, and they started using US dollar as the reserve currency around the world, where the bodies like World Bank or IMF has been formulated, and all the countries around the world has to follow fixed pegging mechanism, where they every countries around the world has to maintain an exchange rate, or they have to maintain a quota with IMF, where 75% of the payment of the quota they have to do in their own currency, and 25% of the payment they have to do in gold or dollar. So according to the Bretton Woods Agreement, one ounce of gold was packed, 1 ounce spelling can be wrong. So 1 ounce of gold was packed around $35. 1 ounce of gold was packed around $35. So and all around the world, the countries has to follow this pegging mechanism, or this exchange rate mechanism, to convert the gold into dollar, or to convert the dollar into gold, and that way they have to maintain the exchange rate with the IMF, and that exchange rate what they're maintaining with IMF can be fluctuated depending upon the reserve what they maintain with an IMF, or the quota what they maintain with an IMF. So gradually after Second World War, we saw fixed pegging mechanism, but around 1972, when Richard Nixon was the president of USA, he abolished the Britain's agreement, and he said the countries around the world can follow their own exchange rate mechanism. So around that time, both the financial market and the currency market become very volatile. So gradually, and after the Gulf War time and all, so gradually the logic of derivative, what all we have studied till now, gradually that logic of derivative was started applying on the financial and currency market, and then a new form of derivatives market came in picture, in the term of financial derivatives and in the term of currency derivatives. So the derivatives which we were seeing till now as a commodity derivative, gradually it become equity derivative, it become currency derivative, it become commodity derivative, it became credit derivative, it become interest rate derivative. So lot of innovations will start happening in derivative market. Now we have exotic options like a contract where now the individuals, where the MNCs, where the investment bankers, they can even trade on electricity, they can even trade on weather. So now we have weather derivative, we have electricity derivatives. So such kinds of innovations are right now happening in the market. So that always be there. When I talk about India, in India, derivative trading was there in the form of badla trading. So gradually after when SEBI came in picture and all, and gradually when our financial market getting more and more stronger, we abolished the badla trading, and we talked about organized trading. And so SCRA Act, Security Contract Regulation Act, was defined for the introduction of derivative in the market. And gradually in India, when we talk about derivatives in India, when I talk about derivative, so in India, the first derivative instrument which came in picture was on 12 June, around 12 June 2000, into 12 June 2000, index future was introduced. Index future was introduced on the Indian financial market. Then on 4th June, then after that on 4th June 2001, we had index option. So we had index option which was introduced on the Indian financial market. Then on 2nd July, then on 2nd July then on 2nd July 2001, we had stock option, which was introduced on the Indian financial market over NSE and BSE, National Stock Exchange, Bombay Stock Exchange. Then we had on 9th November 2001, 9th January, so we had a stock future, which was introduced over our exchange for trading. So when you see index future, when you see stock future, what is the difference between index future or stock future? So when you say index future, so here the underlying asset, when you say index future, so here the underlying asset is index. So here the underlying asset is the index, where here the underlying asset is the stock. So when you say stock future, so when you say index future or when you say stock future, so both follow the logic of how the future contract works. But in the case of index future, you have an underlying asset called index. Index can be, so when you see index, so you know that there's so many indexes are there. So the most famous index, if I talk about Nifty, is HGX Nifty 50. So that portfolio of 50 companies. But there are a lot of indexes are there. If you open NSE website or if you open BSE website, there are a lot of indexes are there. So you have sectorial indexes like CX and like NSE Banking Index, NSE IT Index, or that we don't say NSE, we say CNX. So CNX IT Index or CNX Banking Index or CNX Auto Index or CNX FMCG Index. You're getting, so you have sectorial indexes. You have index like when we say Nifty is basically the portfolio of top 50 blue chips company. Okay, so like that we can have Nifty 200, we can have Nifty 100. You understand? Nifty 100 means top 100 companies. Nifty 200 means top 200 companies. So like that, so you can either trade on indexes or you can trade on stocks. Stocks, the individual stocks. So if you go to, I'll forward you the NSE book on derivatives. So there you can study what is the eligibility criteria for the stock to be trade on the derivative market. So you can that theory part and all you can cover by yourself. I have a PPT also, which I'll forward you for derivatives. So you can read the theory part from that, or you can watch my video or separately for the theory part. I have made the video, like you can see this introduction of derivative, or understanding future contract, explanation of future contract, concept of margin in future contract. So all these videos already, introduction to option contract, understanding option contract, all these videos already I have made in the past. So that those are theoretical video. You can watch them to understand them more in much more better way. So gradually, if you remember, efficient market hypothesis, so and all, so you know that you cannot beat the market. You know that you cannot beat the market. So market, when I say I cannot beat the market, or when I say CAPM model and all, when we use CAPM model, we say that CAPM model means expected return on the stock, that is RF plus beta into RM minus RF. So according to CAPM model, we use this formula. So here, what is RM? What is market return? Market return means the return what is given by the market, means your stock index, like NS, like Nifty or Sensex. So we believe, according to efficient market hypothesis, we believe that the return what your market offers to you, that is the best return. You can never beat the market. So the return what is offered by Nifty in last 1 year, that is the best return. We believe that no matter what we do, we can never get the better return more than that. Okay, that is a hypothesis, not a reality. So the fund managers around the world for mutual funds and hedge funds, they work aggressively to beat the market. So the difference between return what you get on your portfolio and the return what you get on the market, that is called as Jensen Alpha. So anyway, so gradually every individual, if you don't know much about the market, the best way to trade is to trade on NS, on index. But the problem is that you cannot create an index, because you can go to the NSE website and you can see the top 50 companies which are the part of Nifty. But if you try to replicate the similar portfolio of Nifty, you may face tracking error and other kind of problems. So the best way, if you want to trade on indexes, the best way, if you don't know much about the market, so the best way to minimize your unsystematic risk or to look for a better form of investment is to invest in on indexes. Now individually you cannot create a portfolio. So either you can trade on index mutual funds, or better way, you can trade on index futures and index options. So that flexibility you may get if you trade over the FNO market, futures and option market. So basically, for primarily for financial derivatives, we have Bombay Stock Exchange and we have National Stock Exchange. But out of Bombay Stock Exchange and National Stock Exchange, NSE is more famous, or they are more dominating power when we talk about the organized derivative segment trading. So for that, if possible, try to clear the exam also, NCFM derivative dealer module. So if you clear this NCFM derivative dealer module, if you clear this exam called NSE or NISM derivative dealer module, if you clear NISM derivative dealer module, so it would be good for you for job perspective, if you really like derivative segment to work on. So that point you can keep in your mind. Any question, anyone want to ask anything till now, whatever I have taught? Any doubt, any question? So I believe you have developed a basic picture about future contract. So future contract, nothing but it is a forward contract which is trading over the exchange. And what the future contract basically do, future contract help us to not to worry about the default risk. In the case of future contract, exchange act like a counterparty. Okay, so now the question arises that okay, fine, I understood that that exchange act like a counterparty, so buyer need to worry who's the seller, and seller need to worry who's the buyer. Exchange take care of that part. But the question arises, how exchange do that? Now the question arises, how exchange do that? So you can watch my videos on future contract and other so to understand that in much more better way. But right now I'll only focus more on numerical part. So if you want more theoretical knowledge, you can watch my other videos to understand that part. Now talking about how exchange makes sure that the default does not happen in the case of future contract. So whenever we say future contract, whenever we say future contract, so how exchange, so question arise, how exchange avoid default risk, how exchange avoids default risk. So in the case of future contract, how exchange avoids the default risk. So that question arises, how exchange can do that. So you need to understand that in the case of future contract, so in the case of future contract, so whenever the future contract starts, so in the case of future contract, both a long position holder, so you both your long position holder and short position holder, your long position holder and short position holder, so both your long position holder and short position holder, whenever the future contract starts, so both long position holder and short position holder have they both have to deposit, they have to deposit they have to deposit uh, an amount, they have to deposit an amount, they have to deposit an amount, they have to deposit an amount as a collateral, as a collateral for default risk, as a collateral for default risk. So whenever the future contract starts, both long position holder and short position holder, they both have to deposit an amount as a collateral for the default risk, for the default risk. So because there is a possibility, that default can happen. So whenever the future contract start, both long position holder and short position holder, they have to deposit an amount as a collateral to avoid the default risk. So this amount is called as this amount. This amount is called as this amount is called as initial margin. So this amount is called as initial margin. So whenever the future contract starts, so both long and short position holders, so both have to deposit an amount to the exchange depending upon the volatility of the underlying asset. So this initial margin, when I say this initial margin, it depends on the volatility of an underlying asset. So depending upon the volatility of an underlying asset, depending upon the volatility of an underlying asset, both long and short position holder, they have to deposit an amount with the exchange. That amount what the long and short position holder deposit to the exchange at the beginning of the contract, this amount is called as initial margin. This amount uh, yeah, Ranjit, I'll talk about that part. So this amount, what the this amount, what the long and short position holder, they have to deposit to the exchange to avoid the default risk. This amount is called as initial margin. So this initial margin is basically determined based upon the volatility of the underlying assets. Because if an underlying asset is more volatile, then automatically the margin amount will be very high. If the underlying asset is less volatile, then the margin amount would be less. So depends upon the volatility of the underlying asset. So how exchange works on the volatility of how exchange calculate the volatility of the underlying asset. So exchange basically use AI, artificial intelligence. So they have a software called Prism. So they have a software called Prism. It works on standard portfolio analysis of risk. So it works on a technical span. So that AI based software, it works on the technique on SPAN. I'm talking about NSE, Standard Portfolio Analysis of Risk, where what it do, it creates 16 scenarios. Whenever you see any derivative instruments, any exercise price of any underlying asset which is working on. So for every exercise price, you have a different initial margin, and that is determined basically by SPAN, that is Standard Portfolio Analysis of Risk. What SPAN basically do? The SPAN basically creates 16 scenarios, 1/6. It creates 16 scenarios, and every scenarios have different probability. We have done problem based on that. So I have shown you how you can calculate the standard deviation and all. So what it basically do? So what it basically do what it basically do whenever you talk about SPAN, it creates 16 scenarios. In all these scenarios, it take two factors into consideration. One is price, another one is volatility, and every factor it puts certain weightage. It puts certain weightage depending upon the present economic condition. So, like maybe in one scenario, price increased by 1/3, volatility remain constant. Second scenario, price increased by 2/3, volatility remain constant. Third scenario, price constant, volatility increased by 1/3. Fourth scenario, price constant, volatility increased by 2/3. So then sixth scenario, fifth scenario, price decreased by 1/3, volatility remain constant. Then price decreased by 2/3, volatility remain constant. Like that, it develops 16 scenarios, and then in each scenario, it calculates the likely risk on the underlying asset, and basically it works on the technique of war. So basically, it works on the technique of war. Already, I have told you about war. War stand for value at risk. So the what war basically means, what is the maximum loss what you can get on your portfolio at a given time interval, at with some certain confidence interval. So at a given time period with some certain confidence interval. So war basically use the concept of normal distribution, and the concept of normal distribution, what I have taught you in statistics in the past. So basically it works on the concept of war, and with that, what exchange basically do, for every exercise price on underlying asset, it calculate the maximum risk, and depending upon the risk, they determine the initial margin. So whenever the future contract starts, both the long and short position holder, they have to deposit an amount with the exchange. The amount what they deposit with the exchange, that amount is called an initial margin. So that this money what they'll deposit to the exchange, that money is called initial margin. So you to understand that, you can watch this video to understand the concept of initial margin and all, how it works. So this money, this initial margin, what the long and short position holder they deposit. So exchange does not keep this initial margin idle with themselves. So what exchange basically do? Exchange basically works on M2M settlement. Exchange basically works on M2M settlement. M2M settlement basically means mark to market settlement. Exchange basically works on mark to market settlement. So exchange the initial margin what the long position holder and short position holder they deposit with the exchange. Exchange does not keep that money idle with them. What exchange do? Exchange every day do the settlement of that. Every day the exchange do the settlement of that, depending upon the price of the underlying asset in the spot market. So they see the variation of the price. So what is the price of the underlying asset in the spot market? They compare that price with the exercise price, and every day debiting and crediting of money happens with the long and short position holder account, till any of the person account touches something called maintenance margin. Till any of the person account touches something called maintenance margin. So maintenance margin is the threshold margin. It is the threshold margin. What is being capped by the exchange. That is what the cap by the exchange. So in any moment of the time, if any of the person holder account, if it touches the maintenance margin, then they get a margin call from the exchange. Then they get a margin call from the exchange. So margin call from the exchange means they have to refill the account from the maintenance margin to initial margin. So they have to refill the account from maintenance margin to the initial margin. If they do not refill the account from maintenance margin to initial margin, so whenever you get a margin call means your account has touched the maintenance margin. If it touched the maintenance margin means now you need to refill it back to the initial margin. If you do not refill it back to the initial margin, then at that moment only the contract will get exit. Okay, and the other person will get that money and you lost that much money. So that process of mark to market settlement, the exchange follows every day till the expiry, till the last day of the contract. Exchange follow this mark to market settlement every day. So the logic of using this mark to market settlement is to make the investors or the long or short position holder aware about what is happening with their account money, or what is happening with their underlying asset in the real market. Okay, so that gradually they can decision any movement of the time. So that is something which is very important for the traders to work on. And so whenever you trade on derivatives, whenever you work on derivatives, whenever you are trading on derivatives, so you have to create an account with your broker for trading on derivatives. And gradually once your account is being initiated and you want to trade on the derivatives, you need to understand the terms of the contract. You need to know how to work on trading. And whenever you take positions on the derivative instrument, so when you talk about derivatives, when you talk about future contract, forward contract, here we are talking about a transaction which will do in the future based on the present determined condition. So you don't have to pay 100% of money upfront. You don't have to pay 100% of money upfront. You just need to pay, in the case of a future contract, you just need to pay the initial margin. You pay the initial margin, which is 40-50% of the total value of the contract. You pay initial margin, and then exchange do end-to-end settlement of your initial margin account. And gradually on your final settlement date, the final transaction happens. That is what is happens in the case of future contract. We'll do one problem to understand that part. You can see this problem, question number 4. This came in the year 2016. So you can see this question number 4, everyone. Read this question, everyone. Now everyone see that here is written, suppose Mr. Naga Sinha bought one contract of Andhra Bank future. Suppose Naga Sinha bought one contract. Naga Sinha bought one contract of Andhra Bank future. So he took bought means long position. He took long position. He took long position on one contract. He took long position on one contract of Andhra Bank future. He took long future. He took long position on one contract of Andhra Bank future. Okay, so here one contract means, here one contract means 8,000 shares. So 1,000, one contract means 8,000 shares. Okay, and he for and for what price he took? 63.8 rupees. So it is for 63.8 rupees. So the exercise price, so the exercise price, the exercise price is 63.8 rupees. So he bought one contract where one contract is equal to 8,000 shares, and he bought for 63.8 rupees. Okay. So what is the total value of the contract? So the total value of the contract, if you want to understand, so the total value of contract is 63.8 for one share. That is exercise price into 8,000. So that is the total value of contracts. He bought one contract. So if you understand, see, understand, if you are, I'm trying to make you understand the derivatives or the future contract by. So understand the problem. What is the problem with the derivatives? Basically, that is that in the case of derivative, whenever we talk of derivative, in the case of derivative, uh, we we are talking about a transaction which we'll do in the future. Okay, so what derivative basically do? Derivatives gives you something called leveraging. Derivatives gives you an involvement of leveraging. So derivative give you an advantage of leveraging. Leveraging basically means, when you say leveraging basically means that with that same money, like, so if you trade in spot market, you have to pay 100% of money upfront. Okay, if you buy Infosys share, if you go to the NSE market or BSE market, you buy Infosys share, you have to pay 100% of money to buy one share. But the same one share of Infosys, you can buy in futures and option market. Uh, but the same share of Infosys you can buy in futures and option market by just paying the initial margin. So what it led? It led to a possibility. It led to a possibility that every Tom Dick Harry can enter into the derivative market and try to leverage their positions. Okay, so just imagine. Suppose Infosys is right now 2,000 rupees, and initial margin of Infosys is suppose it is 500 rupees. So means with 2,000 rupees I can buy one share of Infosys, but the same share of Infosys in derivative I can take position on four shares of Infosys, because every share of Infosys the initial margin is 500 rupees. So with the same money with which I could have buy one share of Infosys in the spot market, in the derivative market I could buy four. I cannot buy, means I can take position on four shares of Infosys, for which payment I will do somewhere in the future. So if my profit will happen, then my profit would become four times. But if I get a loss, my loss will get four times. So that is leveraging. So because that create a possibility of too much speculation in the market. So in order to avoid all the speculation in the market, what exchange basically do, that exchange does not want everyone to trade on derivative market. Exchange wants only limited people to trade on the derivative market. So that's why they use this concept of contracts and all. So you can see one contract here. If you see one contract here means 8,000 shares. So you cannot take future contract on one share of this Andhra Bank. So you cannot take position on one shares of Andhra Bank. If you want to trade on Andhra Bank, minimum you need to trade on 8,000 shares. Or because when you're trading on Andhra Bank, if you want to take future contract on Andhra Bank, you can do only lot sizes or in contract sizes. So here one lot or one contract means 8,000 shares. Multiples of 8,000 shares you can take position, but you cannot take position on 4,000 shares or 5,000 shares or 6,000 shares. I hope you're understanding. So here the total value of contract is 63.8 into 8,000. So into 8,000, that is 5,10,400. So this is 5,10,400. This is 5 lakh. So this is This is 5 lakh. This is total value of contract. This is 5 lakh 10,400. This is 5 lakh 10,400. So that is the total value of contract. That is the total value of the contract. That is the total value of contract. Okay. So that is the total value of the contract. But you now I hope you understood. So whenever the future contract starts, both the long and short position holder, they have to deposit an amount with the exchange that is called initial margin. So you can see here the initial margin is 50%. So the initial margin, so what is the initial margin? So the initial margin is 50%. So 50% of this. So 50% of the total value you need to give. Okay. So that will come around how much? That will come around 2 lakh. This is 55,004 and 200. That is the initial margin. I hope you can understand. This is very simple. It is very simple concept. Like I'll give you an example of my wife. Like she told me that she want to give some gold ornament to goddess Durga. So on Durga Puja festival, she want to put some gold ornament to the goddess Durga. So now the thing is that the gold prices every day is increasing or decreasing like that, you know that. So if I go to the jeweler, if I go to the jeweler and tell the jeweler to make this gold ornament, okay, then the jeweler would have that risk that once that ornament will get ready, then will that person will come back to me or not. Okay, then if imagine if jeweler do that also, but maybe what will happen, then when the gold ornament will get ready, when I'll come to take the delivery of the gold ornament, then the jeweler will take that day price of gold. Are you getting me? Then the jeweler will take that day price of gold to sell that gold ornament to me. I hope you're understanding. And you know that every day the price of gold is changing. So it can be the possibility, you understand, try to understand. It can be a situation that the day when I go for the delivery, that day the price of gold would be higher than today price. The today price, I'm making an agreement with the jeweler saying that on the after 1 month on the day of what you say Navratri time, I'll come and buy gold ornament from you. So during Navratri time, the gold price can be more than today price or it can be less than today price. If Navratri time, if the gold price or on that time is more than the today price, then the gold jeweler would be the profit side and I would be loss side. But if the price fall down, then what? So I hope you understand. So what normally happens? So what we did, we gave certain money. So around 30-40% of the money we gave to the gold jeweler, saying that during Dhanteras or during Navratri time, I'll come to you and I want this much gold ornament to give to the goddess Durga. So you make sure that get ready. So gold jeweler said, okay, fine. And then what we agreed that I'm giving you money today, so we'll consider today gold price. We'll consider today gold price as determining the total value of contract when the final transaction happens. So derivative is not something which should be very complicated, which should be mathematical. It is something which is very common in day-to-day life. We use that in our day-to-day life very predominantly. Maybe you are not aware about that is called derivatives in financial market, but that is something which is very common. So I hope you're understanding. So here again, so what is initial margin? Initial margin is nothing but it is a token. It is a collateral. So we are talking about a transaction which we'll do in the future. So so Andhra Bank future, one contract I've taken, the total value is around 5,10,400. So we'll do in the future. Okay, so you need to give some amount as a token. So that if you run away, I should have something. That is called initial margin. So the initial margin here is 2,55,400, 2,55,200. So Mr. Naga Sinha, who is entering into this Andhra Bank future contract, Mr. Naga Sinha, who has taken long position, he has to deposit 2,55,200 rupees, which is the initial margin in his initial margin account. So when the contract starts, Mr. Naga Sinha has to deposit 2,55,200 rupees in his initial margin account. And the person, whoever is the short position holder, who is giving one contract of Andhra Bank future to the Naga Sinha after how many months? After how many months? I don't know. Time period is given, no. So whatever the time period, maybe 1 month or 2 months. With Naga Sinha is a long position holder. So whoever is the short position holder, that person also have to deposit 2,55,200 rupees in their account. Hope you understand. So whenever a future contract starts, Mr. Naga Sinha and the other person both will deposit 2,55,200 rupees in the initial margin account. That money your broker will take from you automatically. That much money that your broker will freeze from your account automatically. Okay, the moment you initiate this kind of future contract. What exchange basically do? So you have done. So see the exercise price for you is 63.8. The exercise price for you is 63.8. And why you took long position on Andhra Bank future? Because you believe that its price will increase in the future. You're getting me? Why you took long position? Because you believe that its price will increase in the future. That's why you took long position. Otherwise, why you will take long position? So what exchange basically do? So like suppose on day zero, suppose on day zero, the price of the underlying asset was 63.8. Okay, and the long position holder account was 2,55,200, and the short position holder account was 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 also 2,55,200. What exchange basically do? Exchange follow mark to market settlement. Mark to market settlement means every day they look into the price of the underlying asset. Okay, so we decided that we'll do transaction at 63.8 after 1 month or 2 months on Andhra Bank future. Okay, now today the transaction done, you paid the initial margin. Fine, and the final settlement will happen on the expiry date. But between this time period, the price of this Andhra Bank definitely getting changing, no? In the spot market on NSE and BSE, every day the Andhra Bank is trading. Every day some kind of news is coming about the Andhra Bank. The news can be positive, the news can be negative. Because of that news, the Andhra Bank share price would be changing every day in the market. So what exchange basically do? Exchange does not keep your money idle with themselves. What exchange basically do? Exchange every day compare the price. Every day compare the price. Exchange every day look into the price of Andhra Bank. Here in this case, Andhra Bank from the spot market. Suppose tomorrow Andhra Bank price become 64 rupees. So if the Andhra Bank price suppose tomorrow becomes 64 rupees, so what exchange basically do? Exchange basically works on M2M settlement. So what is M2M settlement? M2M settlement basically means what exchange do? Exchange believe that exchange believe that 63.8 was the exercise price, and exchange what basically do? Exchange believe 64 is the final settlement price. Okay, so exchange believe that the 64 become the final settlement price. Okay, then if 63.8 was the exercise price and 64 become the final settlement price, so what that mean? That means the long position holder is in the profit of 0.2 into 800 shares. That much is the profit, and the short position holder would be in loss of 0.2 into 800 shares. You understanding? So what exchange basically do? Exchange every day compare the price of the underlying asset with the previous day price. Every day the exchange do this. Every day the exchange do this. So yesterday price becomes yesterday price becomes the exercise price, and today price becomes the settlement price. And every day they compare the price. If the price increase, then the long position holder is in profit side and short position holder is in loss side. So whatever profit, so here is the profit of 160 rupees. No, so what is 10%? That is 160 rupees. Here this is a loss of 160 rupees. So what they will do? So now if just I'll give you an example. If next day the price become 64 rupees, then the long position holder is in a profit of 160 rupees, and short position holder is in a loss of 160 rupees. So what exchange do? What exchange basically do? Exchange takes 160 rupees from short position holder account and put 160 rupees in long position holder account. This is called mark to market settlement. This is called mark to market settlement. So if happens like this, so what will happen? So now this person account become 2,55,200 plus 160. So plus 160 become 2,55,360, and short position holder account become 2,55,200 minus 160. That is 2,55,040. So like every day they do like this. So every day the debiting and crediting of money from your account happens. So if the price, if you are long position holder, price increasing, then you get some money from short position holder. If the price decrease, then some money from your account would be given to the short position holder. Okay, this process is called mark to market settlement, and this happens till the end of the expiry of the contract. Okay, and within this course, if any movement of time, if your account touches maintenance margin is threshold margin. Maintenance margin is threshold margin. Like I have HDFC Bank account where the minimum balance I need to maintain is 10,000 rupees. Okay, every day I do trading, I do trading, I do businesses. So lot of money comes to my account, lot of money go out of my account. But any moment of the day, if my HDFC Bank account, if it become less than 10,000 rupees, my bank, I get a call from my bank saying that, sir, your account has become less than 10,000. Please put a 10,000 or more than 10,000. Otherwise we'll put penalty on you. So this the same example here. So here the initial margin you can see is around 2,55,000. Okay, and then there's some maintenance margins also there. So 50% is the initial margin, and 40% is the maintenance margin. So what do you mean by maintenance margin? Maintenance margin basically means that if any day if your account touches maintenance margin, it means that it reached the threshold. It reached the threshold means if you do not refill your account back to initial margin, then we will cancel the account. Why your account touched the maintenance margin? The reason why your account touched the maintenance margin from the initial margin, why your account become maintenance margin? Because thing is not happening what you expected. Because the thing is not happening what you expected, because of that reason only your account from initial margin has touched the maintenance margin. It's like a checkmate. Before I'll put you out of chess game, I'm giving you a checkmate. So you want to continue? Do you want to continue this transaction? If you want to continue the transaction, refill your account from maintenance to initial. If you do not refill the account, then we'll cancel the transaction right now. If you will cancel the transaction right now, what will happen? What will happen? You lose the money. You lose the money, whatever the money from initial margin, your account become maintenance margin. So that much money you lose, and the other person will gain that much money. And then the contract get ended that moment only. If you want to continue the contract, then you need to refill your account. You need to refill your account back to the initial margin. Okay. So the difference between the initial margin, with maintenance margin, the difference between initial margin and the maintenance margin, that is called as variation margin. So that is called the variation margin, which the investor has to put to the exchange, and the event according to which you get a call from your broker, the event through which you get a call from your broker saying that, sir, your account has touched the maintenance margin, so please refill your account. This event is called as margin call. Okay, so here if I talk about the contract, so this is all a rough work, so let me erase this. So here if you see the maintenance margin, here if you see the maintenance margin is 40%, 40% of total value. The 40% of total value, if you calculate, is 5,10,400 into 40%, that is 2,04,160. So that is 2,04,160. So this is your maintenance margin. So any movement of the time, if your account touches this much amount, then you have to refill your account. Otherwise, the contract will get ended. Okay. Now see this problem. So this is the problem. So this Mr. Nagasinha, because Nagasinha has taken one contract on the Andhra Bank, so Mr. Nagasinha has deposited 2,55,200 rupees as a collateral, which is the initial margin to the exchange, because exchange is saying that it guarantees the default risk. So how exchange will guarantee the default risk? So this is the logic how the exchange will guarantee the default. So the total value of the contract you can see is 5,10,400, but the final transaction happens on the maturity date. Okay, so then you can see the initial margin is 2,55,200 rupees, which Mr. Nagasinha would be depositing to the exchange. Okay, now then the question is that, okay, now if the suppose the stock price drops to 57 rupees, okay, so he took the contract at 63.8. So he took the contract at 63.8, but the price become now 57 rupees. And you took, if you take long position, that means that you take long position believing that the price will increase. So more the price will increase, more the profit you make. If the price will decrease, then you are getting a loss. So you took this long future on 63.8, but the price become 57, means you are in loss side. Are you understanding? So from 63.8, the price becomes 57. So then question number one is that, does Mr. Nagasinha need to put additional fund in his account? If yes, how much? So he has deposited, Mr. Nagasinha has deposited 2,55,200 rupees. Okay. Now if the price exercise price is decreased, okay, from 63.8 it becomes 57 rupees. So from 63.8 it became 57 rupees. So from 63.8 it become 57 rupees. So how much he's getting a problem? So how much is the drop in the price? How much is the drop in price? So the drop in price is 63.8 minus 57 rupees. The drop in price is how much? So 57, that is 3 plus 3, 6. 6.8 rupees the price decrease. So the drop in price is 6.8 rupees. So because the price decreased by 6.8 rupees, and one contract means 800 shares, 8,000 shares. So what is the total value? What is the total drop in the value? What is the total loss in contract? So the total loss in the contract is 6.8 into 8,000. So this much is the loss what he'll get. So 6.8. So 6.8, 68 into 800, 68 into 800. So that is 54,400 rupees. That becomes 54,400 rupees. So he got a loss of 54,400 rupees. Now his initial margin account. Now his initial margin account will become his initial margin account. Now his initial margin account will become how much? So it was earlier 2,55,200. Now he got a loss of 54,400. So what the exchange will do? Exchange will take 54,400 rupees from his account and put 54,400 rupees into the short position holder account. I hope you're understanding. So how much his account has become? So that minus 2,55,200. So that become 2,08,000. That has become 2 lakh. That has become 2,08,000. So that has become 2,08,000. You can understand this. 63.8 minus 57 was 6.8 into 8,000. So that was 54,400, and his account now become a 2,08,000. So you can see that your maintenance margin, you can see that your maintenance margin, you can see that your maintenance margin was 2,04,000. Okay, but now if his account has become, his initial margin account has become 2,08,000, means it dropped below the maintenance margin. If it dropped below the maintenance margin, so then it means then the investor, after that, then the investor will get margin call. Then the investor will get margin call from the broker or from exchange. So exchange, we use the word exchange, but exchange is not giving the margin call. His broker will give the margin call because his broker is responsible to the exchange. So the investor will get margin call from the broker to refill the account, to refill the account, to refill the account, refill the account back to initial margin, back to the initial margin, fill his account back to the initial margin. So how much is the initial margin? 2,55,000. The initial margin is 2,55,200. So how much money he has to deposit? So the fund need to deposit. The fund need to deposit. The fund need to deposit is 2,55,200 minus his account has become 2,08,800. So how much the fund he need to deposit? So 2 lakh. So 2,55,200. This is 4,400. Then this is 4. This is 4. No? This become 4. This become 4. Then this become 4 now. This become 54,400. Whatever money he lost, no, that much money he has to deposit. So he need to deposit the same money. So now his account become, so he got a loss of 54,400. So that much money he need to deposit back to the exchange. So if he'll not deposit this much money back to the exchange, the contract will end, and the other person will get 54,500, 400 rupees profit. You get 54,400 rupees loss. Okay. Then the next thing is that what is a break even? What is the break even price that Andhra Bank can fall before X receive the margin call? So what is the break even price? So break even price is easy to determine. You see, initial margin is 50% and maintenance margin is 40%. What would be the break even price? So the break even price, if you want, the break even price, because if you see the difference between maintenance margin and initial margin is 10%. Break even price would be what? 10% of 63.8. 63.8. This, if you subtract from 63.8, that would be the break even. That would be 90% of 63.8. 90% of 63.8, if you determine what is the break even price, so 63.8. So 63.8, if you find the 90% of that, that is 57.42. If so 57.42 is the break even price. So if this Andhra Bank, if this Andhra Bank price, if this stock of Andhra Bank, if the stock of Andhra Bank, if the stock of Andhra Bank, if the stock of Andhra Bank, so if the stock of Andhra Bank, so if the stock of Andhra Bank, if the stock of Andhra Bank trades, if the stock of Andhra Bank trades any price between 63.8, if the stock of Andhra Bank, if it trades on any price between 63.8 to 57.42, okay, so no margin call the investor will receive. No margin call the investor will receive. Okay. So if it receive anything, if it receive, so if it go above also, no, so anything, so you understand, anything, so anything, if it from here any limit, okay, any limit, so here any limit, so but it should not go below 57.42. So if it go below 57.42 means he get a margin call, because if the stock, if the stock touches, if the stock price touches, if the stock price touches 657.42, then Mr. Nagasinha, then Mr. Nagasinha will receive, will receive, will receive, will receive margin call. Will receive margin call. You understand why? If you say why, we can prove 63.8 minus 57.42, okay, into 8,000. So if the price from 63.8, if it becomes 57.42, so what is the loss he get? So what is the loss, if you want to believe what is the loss he get? So the loss what he'll get, so that you can prove it. So 63.8 minus 57.42, that is 6.38 into 8,000. If you calculate this, if you calculate this, so this you are getting as 51,040. This is equal to 51,040. So now if we get a loss of 51,040, so if the loss is, if the loss is 51,040, so then his initial margin account, then his initial margin account will become how much? So he has deposited 2,55,200. So 2,55,200 minus 51,040. This become how much? This is how much? This, it has become 2,04,160. 2,04,160. So 2,04,160. That is his maintenance margin. That you can see, 2,04,160 is his maintenance margin account. So if the price go below, if the price go below 57.42, then he'll get a margin call from his broker. Okay. Then the third part of the question, suppose the price rises to 70 rupees. Suppose the price rises to 70 rupees. From 63.8, the price becomes 70 rupees. So what is the return on investment? So what is the return on investment? So if the price from 63.8 rised to 70 rupees, what is the return on investment? So the return on investment, so the return on investment is like 70 minus 63.8. This is a profit he get on 63.8. If you want, you can multiply the number of shares, 8,000 into 8,000, all that you can do, but that will anyway will get cancelled. That's why I'm not considering that, but just for your understanding, I have just wrote this. Write in the term of percentage. So 64 matlab 6.2 divided by 63.8 into 100. So this becomes 620 divided by 63.8. This becomes, so this is the return on his investment. So 6200 divided by 638. So that he got 9.7178. This much return he got. Anyone, any doubt? Anyone, any doubt, anything you want to ask? Anyone, any doubt, anything you want to ask? Okay, guys, so I believe you have understood what all I have done uh, in today's class. So if you have any doubt, you feel free to ask. Okay, so anything, anyone want to ask anything before I wind up the class? Okay, guys, then I'll wind up the class. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all. Thank you, Monisha, Nandita, Ranjit. See you again. See you all in the next class.